What does it really mean to upgrade humanity? That phrase is everywhere now. We hear about human enhancement, cognitive augmentation, longevity, neural interfaces, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence companions, biodigital convergence, smarter systems, smarter bodies, smarter cities, smarter everything. The language of the future is full of upgrades. But in Garden of Wisdom, I ask a more difficult question. What if the greatest upgrade is not technical at all? What if the true crisis of the future is not that our machines will become too intelligent, but that our inner life may remain too underdeveloped for the tools now in our hands? Because, let us be honest, humanity already possesses enormous power. We can alter ecosystems, split the atom, edit genes, shape attention at planetary scale, build systems that predict behavior, generate language, influence culture, and increasingly mediate the terms of everyday life. And yet, with all this power, we still struggle with ancient problems: pride, fear, greed, violence, tribalism, domination, distraction, the inability to live wisely with what we ourselves create. So, when I speak about humanity's upgrade, I do not mean simply becoming faster, stronger, more connected, or longer lived. I mean becoming more conscious, more responsible, more compassionate, more capable of holding power without being corrupted by it, more capable of guiding creation toward life rather than destruction. That is the real upgrade. And that is the central argument of this talk. In Garden of Wisdom, I describe the human story as moving through stages, not only technological stages, but stages of moral and civilizational development. Humanity 1.0 is survival driven. Humanity 2.0 becomes more organized, more complex, more self aware, but still often governed by competition, hierarchy, scarcity, and fragmentation. The question before us now is whether humanity 3.0 can emerge. A humanity more deeply aligned with wisdom, cooperation, stewardship, and higher consciousness. That, to me, is the real threshold, because the danger of our time is not simply artificial superintelligence. It is immature humanity with advanced tools. It is a civilization with godlike instruments and adolescent instincts. It is the widening gap between what we can do and what we are prepared to do wisely. And that gap is where the future becomes unstable. Think about how often modern culture confuses enhancement with evolution. We assume that if we can improve efficiency, we are progressing. If we can extend lifespan, we are advancing. If we can increase productivity, we are becoming better. If we can optimize systems, we are moving upward. But optimization is not the same as wisdom. Enhancement is not the same as maturity. Longevity is not the same as meaning. And intelligence is not the same as conscience. A person can become more capable without becoming more humane. A society can become more connected without becoming more just. A civilization can become more technologically advanced while becoming more spiritually confused. So the real question is not whether humanity will upgrade. In some sense, it already is. The real question is upgrade into what? Into deeper dependence on systems we do not understand, into greater inequality between the enhanced and the left behind, into a world where the human person becomes increasingly instrumentalized, into a culture where convenience replaces character, into a civilization that extends its reach while losing its soul, or into something better, into a wider circle of care, into greater responsibility, into deeper participation in the living universe, into a form of intelligence that is not merely sharp, but wise, into a future where power is guided by reverence for life. That is the choice, and reverence the choice about, and in Garden of Wisdom, choice matters enormously, because one of the deepest claims of the book is that human beings are not only driven by forces beyond them, they are also gifted with the capacity to choose, to align, to direct their becoming, to decide whether the flame they carry will be used for domination or illumination. This is what makes the human condition so serious and so hopeful at the same time. We are not trapped in inevitability, we are not powerless before our own inventions, we are not merely passengers carried by technology wherever it decides to go. We are participants, moral participants, creative participants, responsible participants. And that means humanity's upgrade cannot be outsourced. No machine can do this work for us. No algorithm can mature our conscience. No platform can give us wisdom. No enhancement can guarantee integrity. No amount of information can automatically produce moral depth. Those things must be cultivated. That is why in Garden of Wisdom, the language of upgrade must always be joined to the language of formation. How are we being formed? By what stories? By what institutions? By what incentives? By what technologies? By what models of success? By what understanding of life? Because every civilization is training human beings into something. The question is whether the training leads upward or downward. Does it make us more free or merely more stimulated? More reflective or merely more reactive? More connected to truth or more easily manipulated? More capable of cooperation or more trapped in constant competition? More aligned with life or more alienated from it? Those are upgrade questions, and they are far more important than many of the technical debates that usually dominate public conversation. Now, let me say something very clearly. I am not against enhancement. I am not against technology. I am not against intelligence amplification, medicine, longevity research, or human-machine collaboration. On the contrary, Garden of Wisdom is deeply interested in the future. It is interested in possibility, in emergence, in what humanity may yet become. But the whole argument of the book is that possibility without wisdom is dangerous. Power needs a compass, and the greater the power, the deeper the compass must be. That is why the real upgrade must involve at least 4 dimensions. First, ethical upgrade. Can humanity expand its capacity for responsibility? Can we build systems that protect the vulnerable? Can we resist the temptation to sacrifice dignity for convenience? Can we create technologies that answer to justice rather than merely to profit or control? Second, emotional upgrade. Can we become less reactive, less ruled by fear, less addicted to outrage, more capable of empathy, patience, and depth? Can we remain human in a world increasingly optimized for stimulation? Third, ecological upgrade. Can we stop imagining ourselves as masters standing outside life? Can we rediscover that we are life forms within a living system? Can intelligence become regenerative rather than extractive? Can progress be judged by whether it helps life flourish? And fourth, spiritual or consciousness upgrade. Can humanity widen its awareness? Can it move beyond narrow ego into larger fields of belonging? Can it begin to see itself as part of a cosmic web of life and meaning, rather than as an isolated species racing for dominance. These four upgrades belong together. If one is missing, the whole process distorts. Technical power without ethics becomes dangerous. Emotional intensity without wisdom becomes chaotic. Ecological awareness without responsibility becomes rhetoric. Spiritual language without grounded action becomes fantasy. But together they begin to form something real, a more mature human presence within creation. That to me is humanity 3.0. Not post human in the sense of abandoning humanity, but transfigured humanity, expanded humanity, a humanity more fully itself, because it has learned to align intelligence with love, power with stewardship, freedom with responsibility, and this is where the future becomes a moral drama. Because every powerful civilization faces the temptation to think that capacity alone is enough. If we can build it, build it. If we can scale it, scale it. If we can monetize it, monetize it. If we can automate it, automate it. But Garden of Wisdom keeps interrupting that logic. It asks, what is this for? Who does it serve? What kind of human being does it encourage? What happens to the weakest when the system grows stronger? What happens if souls are being rewarded? What kind of civilization are we rehearsing through our designs? These are not secondary questions, they are the central questions. Because in the end, every technology becomes an environment, and every environment shapes consciousness. So the upgrade of humanity is happening whether we speak about it or not. The only question is whether it will be conscious. Will we guide it or will we drift into it? Will we choose what kind of beings we are becoming, or will we let markets, systems, and appetites make that choice for us? That is why I believe this century is not only an age of innovation, it is an age of initiation. Humanity is being tested, tested by power, tested by speed, tested by abundance, tested by complexity, tested by our ability to handle tools that exceed anything previous generations had to confront. And what this test reveals is not merely what our machines can do, it reveals who we are, whether we are shallow or deep, whether we are fragile or grounded, whether we worship power or guide it, whether we know how to choose what serves life. In Garden of Wisdom, I argue that the human gift of choice is central to this whole threshold. We are not the only beings in creation. We are not the largest, not the oldest, not the strongest in every sense, but we appear to be a being that can reflect on its reflection, choose with awareness, participate consciously in the shaping of worlds. That is a tremendous dignity. And it is also a tremendous danger, because freedom means we can choose badly. We can choose systems that narrow consciousness instead of widening it. We can choose tools that intensify greed rather than elevate care. We can choose short-term advantage over long-term flourishing. We can choose brightness without warmth, speed without wisdom, scale without humility. But freedom also means something else. We can choose to grow. We can choose alignment. We can choose to educate desire rather than simply obey it. We can choose technologies that deepen life rather than hollow it out. We can choose a future in which intelligence serves the unfolding of greater consciousness rather than the concentration of control. And that is why I do not think humanity's upgrade should be discussed only in laboratories, boardrooms, or engineering departments. It must also be discussed in schools, in philosophy, in ethics, in spiritual traditions, in ecological thinking, in public life, in families, in culture itself, because the upgrade we most need is not hidden in a device. It is hidden in what kind of human being we choose to become. Now let me ask the question directly. If we become smarter but not kinder, have we upgraded? If we live longer but not wiser, have we upgraded? If we merge with more powerful systems but lose our capacity for wonder, conscience, and care, have we upgraded? I would say no. That is extension without elevation, power without transformation, capability without maturity. A true upgrade must elevate the quality of being. It must increase not only what we can do, but what we can responsibly hold. More truth, more care, more discipline, more reverence, more resilience, more ability to remain aligned with life under conditions of immense power. That is what the future asks of us. And that is why I believe the human story is still open. We are not finished. We are not fixed. We are not condemned to remain morally smaller than our technologies. But growth will not happen automatically. The tools can assist, the systems can support, the knowledge can illuminate. But the choice remains ours. Will we use this century to become more distracted versions of ourselves, enclosed in systems of comfort, optimization, and synthetic control? Or will we use it to become more conscious participants in creation, carrying love, light, responsibility, and wisdom into everything we build? That is humanity's upgrade. Not the replacement of the human, the deepening of the human, not escape from our condition, the maturation of it. Not the end of choice, but the full seriousness of choice. And perhaps that is the real meaning of the future. Not that we finally build machines like gods, but that we finally become human enough to guide power without betraying life, as above, so below. In Garden of Wisdom, I argue that humanity's greatest upgrade is not greater power alone, but the conscious choice to grow in wisdom, love, and responsibility, so that all we create may serve higher states of life and consciousness.